My name is Tom, and I was just hitting 55 when everything went sideways. A year earlier, if someone told me my own family would deliver the most brutal lesson I'd ever learn, I would have laughed. I wasn't the perfect husband or dad, but I truly believed I'd done right by them. I paid the bills, never missed a school play, a doctor's visit, or an anniversary. I thought I'd built a life they could count on. I guess I was wrong. Turns out sometimes people get so used to the security you provide that they secretly blame you for being the one to provide it. It all kicked off about a month before my birthday. Carla, my wife, started dropping these little clues. "This year's going to be different," she said one evening on the couch. She was scrolling through her phone, and I was half-heartedly pretending to read the paper. I looked up, raising an eyebrow, and asked what she meant. She just gave me this sneaky wink and said, "Just trust us." I figured maybe they were planning a big party, or the kids had teamed up to get me a cool gift. A nice watch, maybe, or tickets to a game. I smiled, you know. It felt good. After years of casual birthdays where I always said I didn't want much, it was actually nice to know they were planning something special. Over the next few weeks, it kept happening. Carla whispering to Lindsay, my daughter, who was home from college. My son Jake giving me this look when I asked if I should request my birthday off work. "You're going to want the day off," he said with a grin. Okay, so picture this. I was really hoping, really hoping, this birthday would be one of those movie-perfect ones, you know. The kind that makes all the little things you give up worth it in the end. The big day finally rolled around. I woke up and Carlo's side of the bed was empty, which wasn't unusual. He's always up before the sun. I took my sweet time in the shower, shaved real carefully, and put on a nice shirt instead of my usual comfy tee. I didn't want to look too excited, but honestly, inside I felt like a kid on Christmas. I kept half expecting someone to jump out and yell surprise, but nothing. Downstairs it was completely quiet. No balloons, no yummy breakfast smells, not even the smell of coffee, just the fridge humming and that darn clock ticking away. I wandered around with a goofy grin, thinking maybe they were all playing a joke. Maybe they were waiting for me at a restaurant and this was all part of the surprise. An hour went by, then another. I checked my phone, nothing, not a single text, not a single call. I sat on the couch for a bit, and with every second that passed, my heart just kept sinking lower and lower. By noon, that hopeful feeling had turned into something else, something cold and hard. I kept telling myself there had to be a plan, that they were probably just running late. But by 3, I finally gave up and called Carla, straight to voicemail. Then Lindsay. Voicemail again, Jake, same thing. At that point, this icy feeling wasn't just in my chest anymore, it was down in my gut, heavy and awful. It wasn't until almost 5 o'clock that I even thought to check Facebook. I wasn't really paying attention, just mindlessly scrolling, trying to zone out. Then I saw it. Lindsay's post. A huge picture. My whole family, Carla, Jake, Lindsay, even Carla's sister and her kids all smiling in front of a cute mountain cabin. The caption read, "Finally some peace without him." I just stared at the screen, my hand stuck. I didn't even get mad right away. It was more like a numb kind of feeling, like the world had disappeared. I clicked through the photos like I was in a dream. There they were, roasting marshmallows, playing games, going for hikes. Lindsay even posted a picture of the porch with a caption, "No grumps allowed." I sat there for a long time, just breathing it all in. No tears, no anger, just this slow burn of understanding that I'd been used by them for years. The guy who paid the bills, who kept his mouth shut when he was excluded, who always showed up. They weren't even pretending anymore. I didn't say anything. I didn't call them. I didn't even text. Instead, I just sat there, really still, and let it all sink in. Then I got up, went upstairs, and grabbed the old manila folder where I kept all the passwords, the lease stuff, and all the account information. See, what they forgot was that this house, the one they were living in and laughing in and planning vacations from, was in my name. Our bank accounts, where most of the money was, were shared, but most of the money I had put in over the years. It was like they thought I'd just keep everything going, even while they treated me like dirt. That night, I stayed calm and quietly moved our money. I shifted everything from our joint account into my own savings, a secret account I'd opened ages ago when Carla's spending got completely out of hand. I told myself it was for emergencies. Turns out it was my escape route. Our lease was almost up anyway, and I'd been thinking about moving closer to work. Now it wasn't a thought, it was a done deal. I hopped online, gave them notice, 30 days, no ifs, ands, or buts. The next morning, the house was quiet as a tomb. I packed a small bag, clothes, important papers, some old photo albums they'd long forgotten, and checked into a hotel. No note, no nothing. I ignored the few texts that came in. "You okay?" from Jake. "Where are you?" from Lindsay. I knew the freak out would come. It was only a matter of when. 3 days later, the real craziness started. At first, the texts were jokes about Dad finally having some peace and quiet, but the mood shifted fast. Jake was the first to crack. "Hey, Dad, can you send some money? We forgot about the cabin and Mom's card's not working." Then Carla texted, "Tom, call me. We need to talk, please." And finally, Lindsay, "Dad, where are you? Mom's losing it." There it was, tacked to the door. I saw the whole thing unfold from my hotel room, coffee in hand. I didn't feel happy, didn't feel like I'd won, just this heavy sense of knowing. Knowing I'd made the right call leaving, knowing they'd never really got me. I didn't pick up. I didn't call back. I just sat there and let the silence hang in the air, listening as their messages went from all cocky to freaking out, from rubbing it in to begging. Then, just when things were really starting to fall apart for them, something else happened that sent it all into a tailspin. It started with a call from the landlord, well, my landlord now. Mr. Delaney, an older gentleman, always treated me right but strict. No games. His name popped up on my phone while I was sipping my coffee and I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. "Tom," he said the second I answered, his voice tight with annoyance. "I just had your wife and some other women yelling at me in the office about an eviction notice. I told them you gave proper notice. They're insisting I take it back." I could practically hear him rolling his eyes. "I'm guessing this isn't some kind of mix-up." "No mix-up," I told him calmly. "I'm not renewing. I gave my 30 days. He made this little grunt of approval. "Figured, just wanted to be sure. I'll make sure anything else comes straight to you." "Thanks, Mr. Delaney," I said, and hung up feeling this weird but solid sense of closure. It wasn't just texting anymore, it was getting real. Our little getaway was imploding. Within the hour, the calls started coming in. Carla, Lindsay, Jake, all blowing up my phone. I didn't answer. They left messages that got more and more frantic. "Tom, call me back. We didn't know about the lease. Dad, what's happening?" Mom's freaking out. "They're saying we gotta move. Tom, answer your damn phone. You're acting like a child. Isn't that a kick?" When they ditched me, it was all good, pure bliss. But when they realized the house and the money weren't just waiting for them, all of a sudden I was the one being childish for not helping them out. Later that night, after a nice dinner at a steakhouse, which I hadn't done in ages, I went on Facebook again. Carla had put up a post, real sneaky-like. Something about people showing their true colors when you least expect it. Family means sticking together, not leaving. Disappointed, moving on, I snickered. Moving on, more like straight into a rental. Maybe if they could figure out first and last month's rent without the account they used to spend so freely from. The next morning, I decided to stop by the house. Not because I missed it, but because I had some stuff there, mostly tools and keepsakes in the garage. Early morning seemed safest. When I drove up, my chest ached. Not because I missed the place, but because it didn't feel like mine anymore. It was just a house, a backdrop for my life where I played husband, dad, the guy who made sure everything was okay. Meanwhile, they were all gossiping about how much better things would be if I wasn't around. I pulled up and parked a ways down the street, then walked up the driveway. That's when I saw them. Carla was sitting on the front step, her eyes all red and swollen. Lindsay was walking back and forth, phone pressed to her ear, and Jake was by the mailbox, giving me the stink eye like he was still a teenager, even though he was 23. They all saw me right away. Carla practically ran over to me. "Tom, you're here, thank God. Listen, we can work this out. Just come inside, we'll talk." I held up a hand to stop her. "I'm just here to get my stuff." Lindsay marched up, putting down her phone. "Dad, are you serious? Why are you doing this?" Jake sneered. "Mom says you're acting like a psycho. You're trying to make us homeless." I looked at them, that old familiar sadness starting to well up inside me. But this time it didn't swallow me whole. It just hung there like an ugly balloon I wasn't going to carry anymore. "I gave you 30 days, I said calmly. "That's plenty of time to find a new place. Maybe use the money you didn't spend on my birthday to get started." Carla's face turned red, her mouth opening and closing like she didn't know what to say. "Dad, come on," Lindsay said, her voice a little softer now. "We didn't mean anything by that Facebook post. It was just a joke." "A joke," I repeated quietly. Then I took out my phone and showed her the picture. "So there's this picture, right?" All of us smiling in front of the cabin. The caption, "Finally some peace without him." "Funny, huh?" Jake just rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic," he said. I lost it. I actually laughed, this crazy, sharp laugh in the cold morning air. "You don't get to tell me how to feel after what you did," I snapped. Carla jumped in again, all panicked. "Please, Tom," she begged, her voice barely a whisper. "We can't afford to leave now. Lindsay's college tuition is due, Jake's car payment. And whose fault is that?" I asked, my voice tight. "Who thought it was a good idea to dump the guy paying for everything because they wanted to have some fun humiliating him?" Their faces changed then. It hit them like a ton of bricks. Maybe, just maybe, they'd gone too far. Maybe the guy they thought would always be there, silently carrying everything, was finally done. I'll be gone in 10 minutes, I said, heading for the garage. They didn't even try to stop me. I could feel their stares burning into my back as I packed, taking my sweet time, giving them plenty of time to stew over what they'd done. When I finally got the last box in the car, Carla came running out again. "Tom, please," she pleaded. "Come inside, let's talk, we can fix this." I looked at her, really looked at her. This was the woman who held my hand when Lindsay was born, who danced barefoot with me in the kitchen, who whispered forever to me when we were kids. "Should have thought about that before you tossed me aside," I mumbled, then just got in my car and drove. Left them standing there looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. But driving away didn't mean I was free, not even close. The fallout from what I did kept getting worse, and their reaction just made it all so much uglier. The first few days were almost calm. I found a little apartment across town, nothing special, just clean and quiet. No slamming doors, no eye rolls when I asked how someone's day was. I buried myself in work, reconnected with some old friends, even started jogging again. Felt like a person again, not just an ATM. That peace didn't last, though, not with people who think they're entitled to everything. The first hint of trouble was a text from Lindsay. "Hey, Dad, Mom says you're legally required to support us since you left. Can't just walk out, we're family." I just stared at it for a while, then put my phone down. Legally required. They weren't kids, they were grown-ups who figured I'd always take care of them just because I always had. Then came Carla's email the next day. Short, sharp, and dripping with that, "I deserve this attitude." "Tom," it said, "you're making a huge mistake." So yeah, I could have sued them back for ditching me. And those kids, they definitely needed some help financially while they got their act together. The message said to call right away, work things out before things got nasty. But I didn't even text back. I went straight to my lawyer, Harris. He's a quiet guy, but sharp as a tack, handled some property stuff for me years ago. I laid it all out, the whole walkout, the house, the joint accounts, even the threats. Harris just kind of chuckled, a dry little sound. He said, "Relax, they don't have a prayer. You're not on the hook to support grown kids, and there wasn't any court order or anything saying otherwise. If anything, they might owe you for using the joint accounts without your permission." Hearing that, man, my coffee tasted amazing the next morning, but Carla wasn't done. A week later, bam, served right there in my office in front of everybody. A huge pile of papers claiming emotional abandonment, me not giving them enough money, and get this, intentional infliction of emotional distress. They were actually suing me. Seriously, I got home that night, sat at the kitchen table, and went through the whole mess. Most of it was just like over-the-top drama. How Carla had given up her whole life for me, never mind that she hadn't worked a day since Jake was born, that was her choice. How Lindsay and Jake had low self-esteem because I wasn't around enough, ignoring the fact that I was at every single parent-teacher thing, every football game, every single ballet recital. This whole legal mess, it was a nasty attack, disguised as something official. And it hurt way more than I thought it would. Some tiny part of me, deep down, still clung to this hope that they'd see how awful they'd been to me. That they'd feel guilty, come crawling back, apologizing, not just demanding cash. But nope, they just went full steam ahead, doubling down on everything. They didn't even see me as a human being, just a bank account that had the nerve to shut itself off. I called Harris the next day. "Fight it," I told him, plain and simple. "Whatever it takes." And fight we did. Court dates were set. I could practically feel them rubbing their hands together across town, thinking they'd cornered me, figuring I'd settle to avoid the headache. They had no idea how deeply they'd wounded me. Meanwhile, their lives started falling apart in ways I didn't even have a hand in. No house. They were hopping between relatives and cheap heirlooms, each stay shorter than the last as people got fed up with them. Lindsay couldn't afford her fancy private school anymore without my help with tuition. And with Jake's car payment also gone, the repo man showed up one rainy afternoon. I found out about it when Lindsay's friend, still on my Facebook, accidentally, I guess, posted a picture of Jake screaming at the tow truck driver. Their world wasn't falling apart because of me. It was crumbling because they'd built it all on me and never bothered to build anything on their own. It all came crashing down the night before the first court date. I was slumped on the sofa, kinda watching a baseball game, when my phone blew up with a text from a number I didn't know. No message, just a picture. It was Carla at some crummy-looking motel, all messed up, eyes all red and puffy. Lindsay and Jake were in the background, looking like a couple of thunderclouds. Underneath the picture, "Hope you're happy." No sorry, nothing, just a real low blow trying to make me feel bad. I just stared at that photo for ages, and you know what? I felt nothing, not a single thing. No satisfaction, no gloating, just this empty, echoing feeling. They wanted me to feel guilty, but honestly, I felt free. So the next morning I walked into that courtroom, head held high, my heart set like stone. What happened in there? It changed everything. Not just for them, but for me too. 'Cause when the judge read what they wanted, looked over the evidence, and gave me that little eyebrow raise, I realized it wasn't just me in the hot seat. It was them. And for the first time, they were gonna have to face the music for everything they'd taken for granted. The courtroom itself, way smaller than I pictured. No fancy wood paneling, no dramatic echoing footsteps like in the movies. Just plain beige walls, uncomfortable chairs, and a judge who looked like he'd seen a million family dramas just like mine. Carla was sitting across the room, with Lindsay and Jake on either side like her own little unhappy posse. I was messing with my phone, totally freaking out, you know. Jake was just sitting there all slumped over, arms crossed, giving me the stink eye, like a kid who got in trouble and still didn't get it. Carla, she was in this serious navy blue suit, trying to look all put together and heartbroken at the same time. She wouldn't even look at me when the judge called our case. The whole room got this weird, quiet buzz going. Then Carla's lawyer, this smooth-talking guy named Morton, thought he was Perry Mason or something, practically leaped to his feet, tossing his papers on the table. "Your Honor," he started, all smug and self-important, like he was used to winning by intimidation. "We're here because Mr. Thompson ditched his family after decades of marriage and financial dependence. My client and her kids are broke, and it's not their fault." He just went on and on, making me out to be some heartless monster who'd suddenly decided to wreck their lives. Every word was a fresh stab, twisting everything I'd done to keep that family going. Finally, he shut up, and the judge looked at me. "Mr. Thompson," he said, "your response." Harris, my lawyer, stood up. He was calm, no drama, no shouting, just straight facts. "Your Honor," Harris said, "my client didn't abandon his family. His family abandoned him emotionally, socially, and completely. So on his birthday, they just left him alone. They went online and made fun of him, too. After that, they all took off for a fancy cabin, which was paid for with money they both had. The thing is, they were all grown-ups, not kids he was supporting. There wasn't anything in writing saying he had to keep giving them money, and there wasn't even a divorce case happening when he closed the shared accounts, which, let's be honest, he was mostly paying for. There was nothing wrong he had done, really. It was just finally he figured out he deserved better. He showed the judge everything, the mean stuff they posted on Facebook, the nasty comments they made, and all. He showed the account statements. They showed that like 90% of the money came from his job. He even showed the lease where it said he was the only one responsible for payments. When he finished, the judge leaned back, put his fingers together, and looked at Carla like she was a bug. The judge asked slowly, "Mrs. Thompson, are you working?" Carla just shifted around. I run the home." "That's not what I asked," the judge cut her off. "Are you currently employed?" "No," she mumbled. Then the judge looked at Lindsay and Jake. "Are either of you full-time students who depend on Mr. Thompson for money?" Jake snapped. "I was until he stopped paying." The judge looked at Jake and said, "You're 23, Mr. Thompson. And according to these documents, your dad was paying for your college out of his own pocket, and he wasn't even told to." My mouth opened, then snapped shut as my lawyer gave my arm a sharp tug. The judge leaned back, sighing deeply. "I don't see any legal grounds for this," he said, his voice flat. "No abandonment, no court-ordered support, no proof Mr. Thompson did anything wrong." He turned to Carla, and his tone got icy. "Honestly, this whole thing screams entitlement. You can't expect someone to keep paying for you forever after you treat them like dirt. What goes around comes around, you know." Carla's face just fell apart. Lindsay looked ready to burst into tears. Jake, he looked like he was about to explode, and the judge wasn't even finished. "And about that little unauthorized vacation you took with the joint funds," he went on, tapping his papers. "Mr. Thompson has every right to get that money back. That means, Mrs. Thompson, you and the kids could be on the hook to pay him." Carla went completely white. I thought she might faint right then and there. "So," the judge said, all business, "we're ruling in favor of the defendant. Case dismissed. With prejudice. Mr. Thompson, you're free to go." I sat there for a minute, completely frozen. It wasn't the verdict that shocked me. Harris had been sure we'd win. It was this feeling inside, like a tight knot I'd carried for years, finally untied. As I stood, our eyes met for a split second. I saw something in Carla's eyes, maybe regret, or maybe just the awful realization that she'd lost everything in this game she thought she was winning. I just walked out, no goodbye or anything. The sun was blazing outside the courthouse. It was gorgeous, you know, like the air was so fresh, and it felt like a day you could just wipe the slate clean. I just stood there for a minute, taking it all in. It was the first time in ages that I felt like I could actually breathe. I wasn't burdened with anyone else's stuff. I wasn't waiting for some okay to be happy. I wasn't scared of the next blow-up, the next guilt trip, the next little stab in the back disguised as family. I was finally free. It was rough for them afterward. Without the house, they all fell apart. Carla ended up crammed in a tiny two-bedroom an hour away. Lindsay had to go to community college since she lost all her scholarships. Jake couldn't hold down any job. They were all super short-lived. Every now and then, I'd get a little email or two. "Happy birthday, Dad." Or "thinking of you." You know, the little fishing lines they'd cast, hoping I'd take the bait. But I never did. It wasn't about hating them. I didn't need to. They built their own mess out of their own greed and not thinking ahead. My payback wasn't about yelling at them or bragging or making things worse. It was simple. I just moved on. I got back in touch with old friends. I traveled around. I started doing woodworking, which I always wanted to do but never had the chance. I even started dating again. Slowly, carefully, with a woman who actually smiled when I talked and listened. Like my words actually meant something. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about everything that went down. It's wild thinking about all those birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays where I felt like a ghost in my own house. I'm talking about years and years of giving everything I had to a family that barely even noticed me. They just saw me as something they had to deal with. And I'd plaster on a smile, not because it didn't sting, trust me, it did, but because I made it, because I'd finally put myself first. And you know what? For the first time ever, that was totally and completely enough.